You see up on the upper left-hand corner, it started recording. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube. It'll be available on Firebirds Collective YouTube channel in the Remembering Bob Blakely playlist, and I'll put the link to that in the chat later. Occasionally, we may want to use screen captures for public relation purposes. If you don't want you to be recorded, turn off your camera. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, help me welcome our dynamic club president, Samir Malik. Where'd you go?
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you very much, Arlene, and welcome everyone to Firebirds Collective. Our 133rd meeting is now open. What is Firebirds Collective? Well, it is a Toastmasters club celebrating and continuing the traditions that Toastmasters was founded with by our Dr. Ralph Smedley. It carries on those traditions as a global online advanced club. We meet all over the world, and we do that by alternating time zones. In an online club, it's not about where you meet, it's about when you meet. And by alternating our time zones, we're able to meet with people from all over the world, and thus our membership is distributed. And we can take that mission of Toastmasters to help build confidence, enable people to practice and hone their leadership and communication skills. We take that into the online space. It is my honor to be opening today's meeting. And before I do that, I'd just like to go around and welcome each of our guests and ask them to just tell us a little bit about themselves and what's brought them to Firebirds Collective today. I'll go around from the way that I see on the screen, and I'll ask you to come off mute and just tell us a little bit about yourself. So I'll start with two in one screen, Jenny Carver and Rick. I can't quite read the last name.
Johnson.
Johnson, Rick Johnson. Please welcome to Firebirds Collective.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I am Bob Blakely's youngest granddaughter, and so we were told that I guess you guys are going to be honoring him today, and Rick is my fiance, and so that's why we're here today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and welcome.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Doc Carver. Thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, I'm Bob Blakely's daughter, and have growing up got to see a lot of Toastmasters, both local as well as around the world with him, and it was a pleasure. And his Toastmasters was extremely important to him. It was a passion, and it allowed him to have a lifeline to many people. So I'm very pleased that you all are love him as much as we do.
Thank you so much, Doc. Next, along the lines, Heather, is it Ahlbin? Heather Ahlbin?
Correct.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Firebirds Collective.
Thanks for having us. I am Bob's oldest granddaughter. So Jenny and I are sisters, and we're Dot's kids. And I am here today for the same reason, but also because I am going to be speaking with you and doing a speech. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute.
Fantastic. Welcome.
All right.
Next to the screen, I'd like to invite Moira O'Brien. Welcome, Moira.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Moira O'Brien. I'm a Toastmaster 3 years, just starting my 4th year. I'm a member of Blarney Club in Cork in Ireland, and I'm also president of Lee Valley Speakers in Macroom, which is a club that I formed 2 years ago. We're struggling to charter, but we're hoping to charter this year. I'm also an assistant divisional director for Division A, that's Diva in our language. We are divas in District 71.
Fantastic. I got my start in District 2071. Welcome, Moira.
Thank you. There's just one other thing. The reason I'm here, apart from having been introduced by Linda Sage when I interviewed her in our district conference a month or so ago, I am starting up an advanced club in our division. So I'm interested in advanced clubs, and I'm doing this with my APL.
Wonderful. Thanks. Welcome again, Moira.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to ask Dave Hollingshead to come to the screen and introduce yourself. Welcome to Firebirds Collective, Dave.
Thank you very much. I had to unmute it, and I wanted to make sure that I had. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I've been here for quite some time. And I had the opportunity to get to know Bob quite well over the years, and he became my mentor. And as I said to the group that was on earlier, became a mentor for me both with Toastmasters as well as with my job and my profession. And I just had an incredible opportunity to learn from the man. And I have to tell everyone who has joined before the earlier comments, this club meant so much to Bob. I heard about you all the time from him. And you really brought joy to his life, particularly in the last year of his life. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
Next to the screen, I'd like to welcome our neighbor from Netizens, Larry Miller.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Miller. I've been a Toastmaster for coming on 24 years in March. And I'm the Vice President of Public Relations in my Capital Speakers Club in Benicia, California. And I'm the President of Netizens, the online club. And I appreciate the invite to be here and honor Bob. He's quite the individual, and he deserves the Mr. Toastmaster label. So I'll be talking about that later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, Larry. Next, I would like to welcome Aaron Leung, if he can keep his eyes open, please. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you very much. My name is Aaron. I'm from Hong Kong, a Toastmaster for 11 years. IPP of Victoria Toastmasters. Also the member of Empress Mandarin Toastmasters, and also the SA of Competitive Communicators Online. I'm here to honor Bob because I've been to Firebirds a few times. I've seen him in action. He's a well-respected individual, and it's my honor to be here again. Back to you.
Welcome, Aaron. Thank you. It's good to see you again. And finally, I'd like to welcome back Steve Davis from Portland. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Samir. How's my voice?
Great.
Good.
Okay. Thank you for having me here, and I'm definitely overdue for a visit. And I'm really here to also to honor Bob Blakely, and I had the privilege to know him for the past year of his life or so, and he is very inspiring person. So I was saddened to hear of his passing, but I was very blessed to know him, and we had great conversation. I'll always remember. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome back, Steve.
Sure.
And just in time, we've had Dennis join us. Dennis, welcome to Firebirds Collective. I'm just asking everyone to let us know a little about where they're coming from and why they're joining us today. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm from Florida. I live in Central Florida, and I'm here today because of your recognition of Bob Blakely. And Bob was a dear, dear friend of mine and a great mentor of mine. I knew Bob for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years, maybe even a little longer than that, probably about 7 years. And it was a great honor to know him and a great honor to have him as a part of my life. And I miss him desperately.
I hear you, Dennis. Welcome to Firebirds Collective.
Thank you.
Welcome all. And I also want to welcome our newest member, Teresa Palmer. Welcome to becoming a member of Firebirds Collective. We honor you. I'll ask you for some comments towards the end to formally recognize you. Welcome. And with that, let's get this show on the road. Next up, we've got our immediate past president and winner, third place winner of the International Video Speech Contest, our very own Toastmaster of the Day. Please welcome Lorraine Taylor.
Thank you, President Samir. It's been so wonderful to hear that we've already started the storytelling, and I know it's only going to grow as the next hour and a half continues. You know, when Bob joined Firebirds, I was the president, and we were a growing club, one in our first year of existence, really. And I remember feeling so honored that we were attracting such a high caliber of person. I hadn't known yet what I was getting myself in for. I was so impressed that Bob had gone outside of his technological comfort zone at his age, and he figured out how to get online and to join us in GoToMeeting, and then he switched over to Zoom when we all did as well. And I noticed that he joined our Facebook group and he was commenting from time to time. But then he just kept taking this technological thing a little bit more and more, and he ended up passing me up. Because you see, all these people in Firebirds were learning all about green screen, and I was going to be the next one. But oh no, Bob had to just fly right past me and do the green screen technology, and I'm still haven't gotten it sorted yet. But I'm very inspired that it doesn't matter how old I get, I still can learn. Now, Bob was so observant. He listened to our speeches and he gave us amazing feedback. And I have since become aware of his feedback that I say the word fantastic an awful lot. And I just can't wait until fantastic is the word of the day. I remember the evaluation that Bob gave, particularly of our current president, Samir. He was, as we know, Samir, he's the communicator extraordinaire. And at the end of this wonderful evaluation, Bob said, Samir, I would like you to redo that speech. And I thought, wow, who does that? Who asked the president to redo the speech? And certainly it was Bob that does that. And it was that level of scrutiny in his evaluations that made an impact on all of us. He just made all of us want to be a better version of ourselves. Bob had been a member for about a month, and he attended one of our business meetings. There were some great discussions, and I was still learning the challenges of leading a global group of people. After the meeting, Bob had contacted me and he said, I don't want to tell you how to run your club, but I want to mentor you in ways of working with a globally diverse team. And I remember just the feeling of, wow, because that's just the essence of Toastmasters. And so many of you have already said mentor is part of how you describe him. And he's more than a mentor. He's a fantastic communicator. He's a wonderful storyteller. But I think most of all, he's just an amazing human being with one big heart and one big soul. And he's left a little piece of that with all of us and all of us around the world. And it is such a privilege and an honor to be here to learn more about him from his family and his dear friends and my fellow Firebirds. So I've got a team of people that's going to help me through the meeting. I'd like to introduce them now. I have the grammarian, now Bruce, and now Bruce says that he remembers Bob's Competent Communicator 2 speech. The title was Pride, and I remember that too. And it's a speech that Bruce thinks that every Toastmaster should listen to. He said he reminded us that we have many reasons to be proud of being Toastmasters. And for Bruce, that is one of the main reasons to be proud, is that we can have membership where we actually get to meet people like Bob. So please welcome our grammarian today, Bruce.
Madam Toastmaster, my privilege to be your grammarian today, and what I am going to do is listen to the pictures that you paint and tell you, highlight the ones that are really good and maybe just help you improve a little bit. The word of the day that I've chosen is tribute, and I've put it up in the chat. So try and use the word of the day, tribute. I'm sure we all know what it means. I don't need to explain it. And I'll work on giving you feedback on the grammar. Back to Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Bruce, for that. Yes, this is going to be an hour and a half of a wonderful tribute. My next role player I have with me is our timer. She was my first mentor in New Zealand. And she does remember that infamous green screen event. And for those of you that weren't here for that, Bob was speaking on the new Toastmasters headquarters that would be in Denver. And he got the whole green screen going, but instead of the headquarters being behind him, it covered his entire face. But as Jeannie remembers, he just didn't miss a beat. He just kept going on, and it's such a wonderful example to all of us. So please let us welcome our timer, Jeannie.
Thank you, Lorraine. That is brilliant. I was absolutely amazed at everything that Bob did, and I'm so honoured that I was part of the club when he was part of the club. Now, I was specially asked to be timer because I have my little bird, Firebirds timers. The green one will say, you've had the minimum you can speak. The amber one will say, I've just worked out where I have to put them, will be, well, you're almost there. And the red one, which has tried to fly away, will say, okay, time's up. And I will ask you, Lorraine, if you can just tell me how long everybody is supposed to speak, because there's nothing written on the agenda about that. Thank you.
Okay.
Looking forward to this meeting.
Thank you, Jeannie, for that. My next role player today is our video monitor and awe counter. And this is Marty. And now Marty, as a memory of Bob, is really, again, it goes back to how good he was at evaluating. And she remembers a table topic that he evaluated. And he reviewed it with such, he responded to the question, responded to how she organized her organizational skills and the value that she added in communication just for a table topic. And it's something that she remembers, and she, as Bob does, just wants us to emulate what he did. So let us hear from our video monitor, Marty.
Thank you very much. Just checking in to make sure you can hear me okay. As your video monitor today, I will give you some feedback on how you have presented in this virtual world. And as was mentioned, it is a pleasure and an honor to be part of the event today honoring Bob. And I chose to finish my comments about the audio feedback. As you said, Lorraine, he never quit improving. Everything he did was subject to his scrutiny and subject for him to improve. So we are emulating Bob today in the idea that each one of us can be a better version of ourselves. So it'll be my honor to contribute to this tribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marty. Well, that kind of wraps up my team players, my silent role players for today. We're going to move on to our part of the meeting, which is we have a speaker here today. And it is Bob's oldest granddaughter. She lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. She's the Director of Business Operations at Bank of America. And I just found out she's going to be meeting our president soon. Such a small world. Heather was instrumental in revamping the bank's Toastmasters program, which gave her a fun project to do and to discuss a lot of things with her grandpa. And last year, Heather received her Distinguished Toastmaster, and I'm sure that her grandfather was very proud of that. A fond memory that she has is when she was 3 years old. It was a time for her to move out of the nursery and into her big girl room. Now, Bob designed and let her help paint a full wall of her room as a rainbow. He was a handy grandfather, having built her a cradle, a rocking house, and later a toy box. However, the rainbow creation was her favorite memory. Now, our speaker today will be speaking from the Humorously Speaking Manual, project number 1, Warm Up Your Audience timer. That will be 5 to 7 minutes. And the objectives of this speech are to open with a humorous story, to personalize the story, to deliver the story smoothly and effectively, and I'm sure that it will be a nice, very nice tribute to her grandfather and something to share with all of us. So please, let us welcome Distinguished Toastmaster Heather Ahlbin.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am thrilled to be here today and wanted to share with you a little bit about my journey of joining Toastmasters. Seemed appropriate given the tribute for today. It was about 10 years ago when my grandfather was on his way through from Virginia to Jacksonville. He would stop over in Charlotte and we would do a dinner or a lunch or some sort of activity on his way through. And he walked in with my mom and he put a Toastmasters magazine on the counter, not so gently, and informed me that if I wanted to have a successful career at Bank of America, I needed to join Toastmasters. Wouldn't you know, that magazine happened to be a feature of Bank of America's corporate partnership with Toastmasters. So it took me 3 months to go to my first meeting, not because I couldn't find it, but I had to work up some nerves. And then I started talking with him because he kept asking how I liked it. And I said, okay, I've got to give my icebreaker. So I joined and signed up to give my icebreaker. I spent weeks working on drafting my speech. And I, thinking of my grandfather as this great Toastmaster, decided to shoot him an email with a copy of my speech. The words that I got back would forever change the way I viewed Toastmasters. Heather, writing a speech is not like writing an essay. Good thing I had a 4-year degree in English. So I took my study and read marks all down the essay that was now turned into a speech. I never asked him for feedback again. I may have shared it with some of my mentees, but never again did I send him an email for fear that it may come across as an essay. From there, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my grandpa, who wasn't necessarily seen as a Toastmaster from my eyes. You heard about my rainbow. Well, we called him Grumpy Grandpa. And Dave asked me about this story, and I realized he probably doesn't share it with anyone. But he had a sense of humor, as you might know. And growing up, my sister and I would wake up at their house to the smell of bacon and sausage or whatever Grandma was cooking in the kitchen, and we could peer out of the hallway. And at the end of the hallway, he'd be sitting there in his lazy boy chair with the paper. So it was our job and our only mission of the morning to prevent him from reading his paper. It resulted in years, no matter where we were, what we were doing, of pretending that that was the mission. Now we know that we're older, he didn't really care about reading his paper. And every time it ended in fits of giggles and us snuggling in his lap and having lots of fun. So probably because of my age and a little bit because he just pretended to be a grump, the Care Bears were popular. And so if you can see, this little grumpy bear became his icon in his office. I believe that was probably the first gift that I ever gave him back. And it followed him and is now part of my house. And my mom is now dripping because of this tribute. But for us, Grumpy Grandpa stuck. There was nothing he could do about it, and so he couldn't fight it. Unfortunately, about 8 years ago, we had a grandbaby. And now that was a whole lot of something to try and teach a kid to say. Great Grumpy Grandpa just couldn't stick. So we started with GGG, and that couldn't stick either. And so eventually it became 2 G's, and it was just shortened to GG. So that's how Grandpa got his name, and that's part of the man that I remember. But another part of the man that I remember is the one who was always coming up with some way you could learn a lesson. See, my husband and I had decided to move to Charlotte, and we were packing up all of the leftover furniture my parents were ready to replace, and we were off to start on our own. And our brand new house needed a washer and dryer. So Grandpa decided that he could help out with that and told my mom she could go pick out a new set so that I could have the old one. You see, kids in their 20s don't need new washers and dryers, and he certainly wasn't going to be part to that. But he was more than willing to come up with a solution to the problem. Good thing my mom's washer and dryer were only a couple years old, so it worked out. After that, I'd like to share one last thing with you. While he was frugal and while he was giving, he gave a whole lot to his community, and he helped me immensely in my career by forcing me, persuading me, or whatever you want to call it, to join Toastmasters. But it wasn't until about 6 years ago that I realized how important it was to him. You see, I had attended a Toastmasters convention with him that had been his one goal to attend in January of that year. We had almost lost him to a pulmonary embolism at that time. And I said, if they clear you to fly, or if they clear you to drive, I'll drive you to Connecticut. So when the doctors cleared him because he was stubborn, as all of you know, I made my first Toastmasters convention. Wow. And I saw that there was a family that wasn't by blood or anything else there that was a big part of his life. And so I saw a different side of him, and we developed a relationship built around Toastmasters and the things that it could do and accomplish in our lives. To me, he was Grumpy Grandpa. He didn't have this amazing family or anything else that existed until I was older to understand. There was a license plate that followed him, TMI, PIP, Toastmasters International, past international president. But as you know, he always had a plan. He always had some angle or something that he was working, and he loved to share and talk about it. Toastmasters gave him that, even when he was unable to get in the car and drive himself. It gave him relationships like he had with Dave and with all of you that were immensely valuable to his life, to his mental health, and honestly to his enjoyment as he cared for Irene. It's funny to me that he's made it to Wikipedia, if none of you have seen it, because of some article that someone thought was important to write about a work deliverable that happened to be a fallout shelter sign. He never looked back and always looked forward, because this right here was his passion. And we thank you so much for the tribute you're giving today. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing those stories. We didn't know he was such a grumpy grandpa. And but they shed a light on a person that, as a club here, we began to realize as each time he was at a meeting, that he was able to just almost spellbound us in his capture of his words. I remember particularly a speech, and I believe it was the one about pride that Bruce talked about. And he was speaking, and in the chat was just going, and there were private messages to me going, this is just amazing. I can't believe I'm listening. I mean, one of my friends, I mean, she's from Nigeria. She works in Dubai for Shell, but she was in Iraq in sitting there and just spellbound by what he was saying and how he was able to deliver it. And, you know, the grammarian is looking for us to paint our stories, and that's something that he was able to do very, very well. And we'll now going to move into this section of our meeting where all of you will get an opportunity to paint stories and a tribute to Bob. And then leading us in the table topic section of our meeting is our Vice President of Education. And she also remembers the stories that Bob would tell. And it was actually, she remembers one particular one, and it was during an after party. So for those of you that aren't aware of what that is, twice a month as a club, at the end of the meeting, we all go and have coffee together or whatever we want. We just hang out and chat and just talk. And like you would do in a normal brick and mortar club. Well, our VP Education lives in the part of the world during this one meeting that it was 3:30 a.m. And every time she was in those meetings, she would always want to get the meeting finished so she could go back to bed. But each time she was about to, but Bob started talking about his time when he was an international president, when he was in office. And he would get to end of one story. She's like, right, that's it. And head ready to go back to bed. And it was like, no, he'd start another one. She just couldn't leave. He was relating the events in a very articulate storytelling manner with humor, captivating his audiences in such a humble and pleasant way. And that's what you're all going to get to do under the wonderful guidance of our Vice President of Education, Fabulous Fabiola.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Indeed, a great one. For a good book review, you describe what are on the pages. You analyze the book, and you try to see what the books want to achieve, the purpose of the book. And you also express your own reactions. Well, in our book review today, giving a tribute to Bob, we are going to do that. For this, we have several of reviewers that will be called upon to do this. You will elaborate 1 to 2 minutes, and on the aspect that the point of view that you have on this. This person that I'm going to call upon I met him as part of being Region 8, Dave Hollingshead. And Dave had lunches and lunch and Toastmaster. What all came up during these, Dave?
Thank you, thank you. Guys, I will try to keep this brief because with my relationship with Bob, it's difficult to do as it is, no doubt, with all of you. I had the opportunity to meet Bob, I think it was probably back in 2004, if memory serves right. I had been a member of Toastmasters for just a short period of time. I worked for Bank of America at the time. I did project management, and I was given the task of figuring out how to do a district reformation for District 47, which at the time was the largest district in the world. Geographically, it was massive. It was all of the state of Florida, west of Tallahassee, east of Tallahassee, basically, as well as the Bahamas. I live in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida. If I go out I-10, I drive 5 hours to get to the end of the district at the time. If I drive I-95 south, I drive 5 hours to get to Miami. That gives you a sense of the size of the district geographically. And then we threw in the Bahamas. 366 clubs, and I had been an area governor. That had been the extent of my Toastmasters experience. But I approached it like a project, and very soon I realized I needed greater subject matter expertise than I personally possessed. It was a very political situation. The leaders of the district at the time wanted no part of having the district reformed. It was basically coming from the board that it needed to be done. I had enough sense to understand the difficulties and the challenges. And truth be told, I finally realized I was in over my head and I did not know what to do, when apparently there must be a God in heaven, because the phone rang. An individual let me know there was a past Toastmasters International president who spent his winters in Jacksonville and might be willing to help me. I was more than happy to pick up the phone and call Bob. And I told Bob that Mr. Blakely, that was what I called him at the time. He informed me his name was Bob and he was to be called Bob. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Blakely, I mean Bob. I said, truth be told, I'm as lost as a ball in high weeds. I need help. He chuckled. He said, come on over tomorrow night. He sat me down across his kitchen table and we chatted for a minute. He printed off a piece of paper from his printer. He said, read me that. I read what it said. He looked at me and he said, I don't remember writing that. And I realized at that time I had myself what I needed for help. We got it done. And from there on, I learned that this was a man that I would want to learn from, and I was wise enough to take advantage of every opportunity I could. We could go on for hours talking about Bob, but he was an incredible gentleman, and I certainly do miss him. Madam Toastmaster.
Wow, now I know where that came from, because when I first met you at one of the conventions, and your style really inspired me to just check in to be a tuition advisor. So yes, that's great. It all started with Dennis. Dennis, can you share with us a little bit more about this?
And if I can figure out how to turn my mic back on. There we go. Now I'm back up.
Yeah.
Couldn't find the button fast enough. Yeah, I'm like Dave. This is gonna be a real challenge to do this within 2 minutes. But you know, Bob was such an important part of my life. I met Bob when I was Lieutenant Governor Marketing for District 84, and Bob had started snowbirding in Jacksonville, and Dave introduced me to him, and he became such an important part of my life. He guided me through my ID campaign. He gave me a lot of advice that was the best advice I think I've ever gotten. Not only that, in a lot of other areas. And then one of the great things that happened over the last couple of years was me being able to drive up to Jacksonville to have lunch with Bob. You know, it was about an hour-and-a-half journey to travel from where I live up there, and it was never a question whether I'd make the journey, because it was always just a real pleasure to sit with Bob and to share with him and have him share with me. And it was just a great friendship. And I will never forget, I was just looking for the email, and I can't quite put my finger on it quick enough, when Bob contacted me and said, you know, I'm up here and I'm feeling kind of isolated, and I'd love to be able to get into a Toastmasters club. And I know you're a member of an online club, and tell me what I need in the way of technology, and tell me what I need to be ready for to join a club. And I said, well, I'm not sure that you want to join my club because they meet at 1 o'clock in the morning. But he agreed he didn't want to join that club. But I said, there's another great club I know of, Firebirds, and so I put him in contact with Arlene and a couple of other folks, and before you knew it, he was the master of online Toastmastering. Yeah. And I was very happy to hear that everybody was delighted to have him in the club, and I know that his membership in your club meant a great deal to Bob. As I said, I miss him greatly. It was a tragic week for me, the week that I found out that Bob had passed, because Bob passed on Sunday, my brother passed on Monday, and then I found out about Bob's passing on Tuesday. So it was a pretty rough week. And this may sound really strange, but Bob's passing and my brother's passing were kind of equal in meaning to me because Bob had become so important to me. So thank you very much for having this tribute. I'm really happy to see members of his family here, and thank you for all this you people meant to Bob as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for introducing Bob to us. Indeed, it meant a lot to us too. And I don't know if Rick and Jenny can tell us how this meant for Bob and how it impacted, you know, the family life that he was, again, part of a Toastmasters Club. Jenny or Rick?
Hi. Well, Rick actually stepped out for a minute, but I've never done this before, so bear with me.
Problem.
I'm
No
not
problem.
but I did notice my grandfather, once he finally got involved with the Firebirds and online again, there was this spark in him that we hadn't seen in him for a while. From the fact that, you know, he loved to go to meetings, and it was something that was very hard for him when he couldn't physically go to the live meetings anymore. So anytime I got a chance to call him, I'd always ask him about what he was doing with Toastmasters. And, you know, he always got fired up and would go on this long conversation of whatever had happened that week, or, you know, so it was something that was very inspirational to him. And he really enjoyed being able to get back and connect with Toastmasters, because that was such a intrinsic part of who he was, is giving speeches. And I think that it was amazing for him to be able to go back and start from the beginning again, which was my understanding. And he started giving speeches because he wanted to know, it was important for him to know what the younger generation was doing and what they were going through, and to see how he could experience it in a new light himself.
Okay, great. You did well. and thanks for sharing. Well, as an experienced speaker, getting a not expected evaluation from an experienced Toastmasters, well, this was the experience from our authentic Egyptian, our president, Samir.
Oh my. Madam Table Topics Master, would you mind repeating the question for me?
Well, as an experienced speaker, getting a not so expected evaluations from an experienced Toastmaster. How did you experience this one?
I thank you so much, Fabiola. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to share this experience. Lorraine gave you a taste of it earlier on. I was actually doing my fourth Competent Communicator 7 project, Research Your Topic. And I was VP of our club at the time. I had to put a lot of focus that day on organizing and facilitating last-minute changes to our agenda. So I didn't put all the preparation that I wanted to into that speech, and I could feel it going into it. And then when he came back, and even in the written evaluation, I wasn't quite sure I believed it. I called him back up and I said, Bob, are you saying that, you know, in order to get credit for this project, I've got to do it again? And he's like, well, you know, Samir, you really can't get credit for it if you don't meet the objectives of the project. And I was like, I get that, you know, that's speaking with integrity. And I said, okay, I'm going to take this on. And I did. And I've got to tell you, I thank Bob so much for holding the line there and working with integrity and raising the bar for me. Because when I re-delivered... Hello, I'm unmuted. Okay. When I delivered that CC7 speech again, Research Your Topic, and I did it the right way, the way that and I was on top of the world. And I thank Bob for that opportunity because it showed me I can do better. And it's actually helped me to pay that forward when I'm working with others. I can say, you know what? I think you could do that again. And then we all grow. And I thank you, Bob Blakely, for the gift that you were and are and continue to be. Madam Topics Master.
Yes, indeed. For all of us, the evaluations, they were tops, and it really helped us to continue to develop ourselves. It was walking in memory lane with Bob when he shared all his experiences in the many after parties we had. What were some of them for you, Bruce? Bruce Page?
Sorry, Madam Topics Master, I was busy making notes.
Oh, okay, I forgot.
Yeah, the after parties were something that Bob, of course, always used to linger for and participate in. And I think it's the way that he always participated in the discussion, no matter what topic came up. And I used to watch him quite carefully because he was, after all, a very, very distinguished Toastmaster. And what he illustrated to me is that he had the ability, probably through doing thousands and thousands of impromptu speeches, just like this one, to, no matter what the topic came up, to be very direct. The thing I remember about Bob is that he would always analyze what people were saying and give you comment that meant something. So it was almost as though every time he spoke to you, he was doing a table topic. And he would always say things that had meaning for me. And I would often go away from those after parties thinking, gee, that's something to emulate. And yeah, that's why I was glad that he was a member of our club, because he was an example to live up to. I can't see the timekeeper on my screen, but I presume I've gone a little bit away, Madam Top Master.
Green.
Oh, okay. I think I'll call it quits.
Thank you, Bruce, indeed. We have two very special guests, Steve and Larry. You two had some great private conversations with Bob. Can I ask each one of you to share some? Let's start with Larry.
Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. I first met Bob in the Online Alliance, and that was the group that he was really interested in making sure there was a balance in the group. He could see where it looked like it might be derailing itself, and he would gently move us to the right track. And then you'd get an email from him, and then he would really tell you what we needed to do. He always spoke the truth. I considered Bob to be an old soul, a gentle soul, Mr. Toastmaster. He was always there for you. Whenever he could help, he helped you, and with passion too. And he was always learning, and he wanted to make sure that you were learning too, and learning the right way. There's ways to learn, and he wanted to make sure you learned the right way. But he was also really humble. Mm-hmm. He never got the attitude that, you know, I was the president of the, you know, blah, blah, blah. It just never occurred to him to be in that mode. Yeah. And his integrity was well beyond any question. And when Bob spoke, people listened. Yeah. Because we knew that he had the vision and the knowledge that we were wanting. And it really was a sad day when I got the word that Bob had passed. I had just talked to him with an email just a couple of days before that. And we definitely have lost one of our great, great Toastmasters. Yeah. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Larry. And from Steve. Steve would like to hear from you too.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabiola, Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. I was privileged to to know Bob through the Online Alliance, as well as Larry. And Bob and I had many good conversations. I can tell you that Bob could see right into your soul. And he did not pull punches, and he knew who was good and who wasn't. And he let people know. That's Bob. Honest. He's also gentle, and he didn't want to be rude to people. He did it in a different way, a way that helped, I think, teach people. And he was we were very close, and he helped me with my HPL project, which I had hoped to bring all the online clubs together across the world. And some of what Bob told me, I should probably keep private, because Bob, I'll tell you something about Bob. He understands the nature of power and how things happen in the real world and how long it takes. And I have one regret. I had it in my mind to interview Bob for a podcast that I have called The World Now. It's just to help people get their message out to the world. And I wanted to ask him, and I didn't. And now it's too late. But that is just how things go. I will always treasure every moment I have with Bob, and he is a great soul. Thank you.
Thank you. A very great book review. Mr. Toastmaster, a humble person, a mentor, somebody that we can all get to remember for a long time. So this is Bob, and we all got to be part of this book review. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster, the meeting.
We're going to, am I muted? Okay. So, yeah, wonderful storytelling, painting so many stories, and tribute to Bob. I feel like we're all getting to know him just a little bit better. Now we're going to move on to one of Bob's favorite parts of the meeting, and that is the evaluation. So I would like to invite back up those people that I introduced earlier to give us an evaluation and to help us be a little bit more of the best version of ourselves. So I would first like to call up our grammarian, Bruce, to share with us the grammar report.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I think given the nature of the day, a lot of the imagery evoked very deep feelings in me. There were a few things in Heather's presentation that really got my emotions going. The mission of the morning was to prevent him reading his paper. I can imagine what they got up to with that. And of course, grumpy grandpa. Everyone should have a grumpy grandpa in their lives. Always coming up with some way that you could learn a lesson. I think that's probably the way that all of us remember Bob. The skill that he had. Several people have actually mentioned it this evening, the skill that he had for teaching people. And then the idea that Toastmasters is a family. I think that is a really powerful image and one we should keep in our mind. Larry, when Bob spoke, people listened. I think that's the sort of person we all aspire to be. Dave, I love the image. I've not heard it before. I'm as lost as a ball in high weeds. The first time I've come across that one, really, really good imagery. The master of online Toastmastering, a good image in that. And Samir, it showed me that I can do better. A lot of people use the word of the day. I'm not going to go through all of them. Lorraine, Marty, several people had several usages. It came up a lot in the chat session. You can see Larry, Shaneba, Teresa had it. twice. Dennis, Jenny, everyone seemed to participate. I actually missed half of the chats listening, but I enjoyed being your grammarian this evening. Hope I've done justice to your performance. What really impresses me about Firebirds, we obviously are an advanced club, because even though we're an international club, the use of English this evening was impeccable. I could find no fault with it. Really well done, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Bruce, for highlighting all of these uses of words that we were able to paint our tribute with. And yes, finding new phrases like the ball and the high weeds is one of the advantages that we have of being a globally connected club. Now going to ask our wonderful timer with her infamous timing lights, Jeannie, to share with us the timing of the speaker and perhaps some of the table topics.
Well, thank you, Lorraine. I have to say that I told Arlene that yes, I would put a ding between the time, but then I discovered that I was muted, so I don't think anyone heard the ding, and then I unmuted myself, and then the phone rang, so then I had to mute myself. So I will carry on with what I've got, and everybody was wonderful anyway, because Heather showed she was a true Toastmaster. She spoke for 7 minutes and 5 seconds, and the table topics were all, some of them went a little bit over. Dave spoke for 3 minutes and 6 seconds, which I think was only fair because he had such a lot to say. Dennis, 2 minutes 30. Jenny, 1 minute 27. Samir, exactly 2 minutes. You're a pro, Samir. Bruce, 1 minute 28. Larry, 2 minutes 10. Steve, 1 minute 30. And then Bruce's grammarian report was 2 minutes and 22 seconds. So everybody was well within time. It's been a fantastic meeting hearing about Bob, and it just makes me wish that I'd known him better, because he was such a fantastic man. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Jeannie. And we'll now be moving on to finding out how we did with our video presence here in our meeting. Please welcome Toastmaster Marty.
Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. It's such a privilege to be here with everyone and to celebrate Bob. As a matter of fact, in church this morning, I was telling my friend Linda about this tribute. She's recently joined in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and become a club president with a little bit of encouragement. So she has had the privilege of learning a little bit more about the Toastmasters in the virtual world, as well as knowing more about Toastmasters in the brick and mortar clubs. My responsibilities today as your video monitor was to give you some feedback on how our virtual presentations came across. And I think each one was exemplary. There were some ones that I wanted particularly to recognize. Heather, an excellent job and beautiful screen presence. Lorraine, well done. One of the things that I would like to suggest, and again, this is from my personal perspective, as we include one another in this balanced picture, if we would look at each other and determine how we can somehow or another position our head in a similar location on the screen, if we're going to have full face shots like this, or if we're going to sit back a little bit and have a balance of our face and our shoulder, which in fact then allows us to be able to incorporate hand gestures and things like that. All of those things are part of our visual presence. Part of what we're learning how to do is to communicate in this wonderful, wonderful venue. I am so pleased to have this opportunity to be part of this meeting. And I also would like to mention to Bruce, dear, sweet, incredible Bruce, I would love to see a little more light on your face, if you would be kind enough. We get a great shot of the books behind you, and there's some really nice lighting on the books behind you, but I miss seeing your. Now, seriously though, I know today you might have been crying, and therefore you didn't want anybody to see, but at the next meeting, all of this is just wonderful, and it brings us so much closer together. Once more, it is a real pleasure to be part of this tribute to Bob Barkley. Madam Toastmaster.
And thank you, Marty, for that wonderful evaluation and just the reminding of us that it is this area that we get to just learn by doing here, and we learn from each other when we learn through practicing, which is wonderful. Going to move on to our general evaluator. Now, she has been touched by Bob and by the things that he's done within Toastmasters, and one of those was his initiative to open Toastmasters for women. She also was impressed, like I was, with his ability to tackle technology. And anybody that says, oh, I don't know how to come onto an online club, or I don't know how to do this with technology, I always think, well, Bob did it, so we can all do it. You can't ever get too old. And she said as well that she still remembers that infamous green screen technology where he plastered the headquarters in Denver on his face instead. So do go to the YouTube channel and have a look at that video. It's quite remarkable because as our general evaluator said, he was just so calm. He just kept on with his speech. Didn't bother him. So absolutely amazing. So please let us welcome our wonderful Toastmaster Mathilde as a general evaluator.
Thank you, Mrs. Toastmaster. And thanks everyone who contributed to this wonderful celebration. It's really a celebration, a good book review, which was light-spirited and light-hearted. And I think everybody has contributed something here. Already starting off with all the people who were visiting our club, asked by our president in a beautiful way, showed how people were touched by Bob's life. I was really, I'm touched myself, and I'm near to crying, so I can understand how family must feel. And although this was so full of emotions, it was all handled so beautifully from you, Lorraine. Thank you for that. I liked our timing devices, and I would like to ask if our Sergeant at Arms could perhaps help our timer. When you're putting the spotlight on the timer, then I think also the voice will be hearable, and this could be quite helpful. This is my little aid, what we could do. The introductions were beautiful. They were also reminding us of how Bob influenced our life. And I really like that we all had the impression of being top of the world. Our president said this, and I think Bob would have loved this meeting, not only because he's in the focus, I think also because he could see how he really touched it. I think sometimes when we're doing things in our life, we don't really see we touch other people's life. We might get a little tidbit, but this was really beautifully bringing out what was there. And I think although Steve missed this iPod session, there might be something like redoing or getting some interviews with people who were touched by life and putting that together in an iPod show. This might really also be a wonderful contribution that you could do, and then you do not have the impression to miss something.
Thank you.
With that, I'm speechless. I really loved this meeting. I think it was beautiful. It was a beautiful reminder. It was taking us all, reminding us, and also giving us again a reminder to keep on growing, keep on learning, and really go in the footstep that Bob are made for us, and he has really paved the road for us, especially for us women, but also I think for other Toastmasters, and opened many doors, and even go into this online initiative and online clubs. That was so beautiful. Thank you everyone for contributing to this beautiful meeting, and back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, General Evaluator Mathilde, for that very thorough and emotional and touching general evaluation. It was absolutely spot on for the meeting that we've had. I like your suggestions. They've gone outside of just the typical Toastmaster suggestions. I really would like to just take the one about with Steve that, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's Bob's not with us anymore, but we can see from today, I didn't think about it, but you mentioned, yes, he can interview people that knew him, and we can have that, because I think that's what we've all felt so strongly today, is that he's a piece of each one of us. And even though we haven't known him for very long, it's been wonderful to see how he's touched other people's lives. And there's so many other people out there. You know, it really is a legacy that he has left. And it's for us to follow in that legacy and to continue telling the stories and to continue to paint the tribute of his life, because that's how he lives on and how we continue to be inspired and to learn from him. I'm just going to ask Fabiola, did you want to do forward planning?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Those was the meeting. Just a short note, our next meeting on December 10th will be a debate contest. And for us, Firebirds Collective, that will be our first online debate. And two teams are formed already, Team Mathilde and Team Moses. And they are all preparing very well for this, but we had to cut down on the timing to fit it into our usual time. So today I'm going to ask and advise our members that we will put another 30 minutes on our meeting time, so the debaters can have their full time to debate and all that they have prepared to present to us, so we have a great debate. And I invite everyone that's here today to, if you can make it, as I am going to make it for 3:30 in the morning, 3:30 a.m., to be online, to especially be part of this debate meeting. You are also invited to be there. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster, for the meeting.
Thank you, Fabiola. And yes, I'm looking forward to our first. We always have firsts. There's first so many things here in this club. We've had our first big tribute, and it's been an absolutely wonderful meeting. Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for coming and leaving a piece of Bob in each one of our hearts. I would like to now pass you back to our wonderful president, Samir.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Lorraine Taylor. As usual, an impeccable effort of emceeing, weaving in stories, and making this a tribute to remember. Thank you all, most especially to Bob's family who have joined us today and made this such a special event. To be able to hear your perspectives just helps us to connect and to really see that we were part of that family that Heather alluded to in her speech. And we have coined a phrase in our club about Firebirds members being family, friends and family. And that just really kind of helped drive that home. So I really appreciate that. Very grateful for you to have been a part of this and helped to become even a stronger part of the Firebirds family. Thank you so much. Now, Bob was a man of integrity. Truly, he was. I recall one time I was coming back from the District 91 UK South convention in which international president at the time, Mike Storkey, had been visiting. And he talked several times during that convention about his downward journey into leadership and becoming the international president. And it was shortly after that that I heard Bob do his speech on pride and being proud to be a Toastmaster, and that one of the things that he was most proud of was flipping that pyramid, and that the international president is at the bottom supporting the members and those. And I got to see that in action, that it was our current, at the time, international president was speaking his story to that, and that Bob had helped to make that happen. So to be connected with that was just an incredible privilege and honor. This event has been a really special one. And I want to thank somebody. We've heard from a lot of people today about how Bob mentored them, but even leaders such as himself have mentors. And our very own member, Arlene, Jayme, has done so much to make this event possible, and done so much to contribute to Bob's growth by mentoring him. And she was Bob's mentor, and I know she's got something she would like to share. So I'd like to acknowledge Arlene for her contributions, both as a member and as a servant leader, and to invite her to share some words with us today. Please welcome to the screen, Arlene.
Thank you, Samir. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I'm going to read to you an email I received on December 9th, 2017. The subject line is Online Club. Dennis Wooldridge gave me your address so I can get information about your club and the process. I'm in a position where, for a lot of medical reasons, haven't been to many club meetings in the past 3 years. I need to be active, and an online club where I can work from home may be of help. 58 years ago, I gave my icebreaker. It's time to start over with our current system. We'll appreciate any guidance you can provide, Bob. That is how I became Bob's guide throughout his online experience. The rest is history, the story you just heard. On behalf of Firebirds Collective, a big thank you, Dennis Wooldridge, for sending Bob our way. Back to you, Samir.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more, Dennis. And hearing you in your table topic about that was the first I learned that it was Bob reaching out to you to find out where could he do this, and you sent him our way. We're forever in your debt for that connection. Thank you so much, Dennis. I would like to give opportunity for some of our members who've not been able to speak during today's meeting to have a chance to share briefly, given where we are in the time, a little bit about theirs. And I'd like to first ask Julie if she'd like to share a few words with us. Please try to keep it 10 to 30 seconds, please, everyone.
Yes. I was extremely impressed by Bob. And I will never forget when he got the green screen instead of back on his face. And he was speaking about headquarters. And the headquarters were here. And he was asked, do you want to continue? And he told, yes. If you let me, I will continue. And the courage and what he said had even more meaning to us because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Next, I'd like to ask our Sergeant at Arms, Brian Dodd, please, and pre-charter president of our club. Brian, would you like to share anything? I can't hear you.
Yes, Mr. President. I heard about this fellow that was putting together series of interviews with past international presidents. Now, I didn't know his name was Bob Blakely. I am a district historian, so this really perked up my interest. Well, when in an after party that I was in at Firebirds and got talking to him and found out that Bob was the person that was putting this together, I felt tingly with excitement because I could be able to talk to him. I do regret not having the time to talk to him a little more, because one of my mentors was a past international director, a little later than what, or around the time that Bob was there, but I never got to talk to him about that. However, if you ever want to listen to Bob, I'm going to put a post in the chat. You can go onto Toastmasters International, go into the history section, and down the page a little bit, and play the video where he interviews some past international directors.
Thank you, Brian. Next, I would like to ask Linda Sage if you'd like to share any comments, feedback. We're still not able to hear you, Linda. No. We'll come back to you maybe. Okay. Next, I'd like to ask our club secretary, Jayme, in Mali.
Okay. Thank you very much, Samir. And I think I have seen Bob Blakely's during at least 4 to 5 meetings. And it was really a great souvenir for me. And I was like, I'm very lucky to have such a wise person in Firebirds Club with me. And also the day he tried to use the green screen, I was there and I was laughing. And I didn't yet try, but I will try also maybe for him as a souvenir to be kept. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayme. And our newest member, Teresa. Teresa, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you, Samir. I found this tribute just absolutely wonderful. To me, it really represents what Toastmasters is all about, the dignity, the respect, the sharing, the family. And that's what I admire most about Toastmasters. I only met Bob once. It was either when I was a guest here or he may have been a guest at Netizens. And I found him fascinating. I really did. And I had heard about him. When you come from a brick and mortar club, you're kind of isolated to your own region. I had worked in the state of New Jersey with Toastmasters, but I had heard about him, the fact that he had changed Toastmasters for women. And that was all I knew about him. And to really be able then to meet him and to get to meet such wonderful people online with such diverse backgrounds and such experience with Toastmasters is really an honor and a privilege for me. So it's an honor and privilege to be part of Firebirds. And it was just an honor and a privilege to be part of today. I had kind of hesitated whether or not I would come to this meeting since I really didn't know Bob well. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to hear what people have to say. And for me, it would be a learning experience. And it really just reinforces my belief in humanity, that we are all such good people, regardless of what else goes on around us. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, Teresa. Oh my goodness. Lovely, wonderful, thank you. And Roberto, is there anything you'd like to share, Roberto?
I've been a member for just a few weeks, so I had no many occasion to hear and to listen and to see Bob. But for the few occasion I had to see him, I saw he had a huge experience, and he was able to give very punctual and smart feedbacks. So I think we will miss him a lot. And we don't have so many people, but not so many people. I don't think we have any people with this experience in Toastmaster and this ability, even if he was, I think, almost 95 years old. So it was amazing. It is amazing how he was able to be such an intelligent guy at that age. I would like to arrive at this age with this intelligence and with these capacities. And we will miss a lot him.
Thank you, Roberto. And Christian, please, would you like to come to screen?
Thank you, Samir. It's the first time I have witnessed a tribute session, and it's a good thing I was on screen because I know what loss is. I've experienced it firsthand. But what I can say about Bob Blakely is three things. It's difficult to teach people if you don't have the skills, and I heard that. Do you have the skills to teach others? And his friends, people who knew him at different levels, they said that about the person, about the gentleman. And we have proof that he is a leader, because if you're not a leader, people won't listen to you. And he was a real leader. He still is, even in his memories. And best thing and the hardest thing to which I'm working on right now, and I think everyone of us wants to achieve, is leave a legacy. I mean, look at it. His daughter is here, granddaughters are here, friends are here. And just by listening to him, you won't say he's gone, he's still here. And that's what the legacy is about, and that's what I think we all want to leave. So all is gold, and that's what I want to be, and I think everyone wants to reach, and Bob Blakely has lived that life. Thank you so much for sharing. Over to you.
Thank you, Christian. Well said. Well said. And Linda, have you got your mic working? Do you want to give it another shot? I can't hear you. Perhaps you can use the chat to share what you'd like to share. Oh.
Any better now?
Yes.
Yay. Thank you for coming back to me. My view with Bob was just the absolute everything that he gave out when he spoke. His eyes really glinted. He was very humorous, and he was just engaging. Everything he said, you would just wanted to sit and listen. You were on the edge of the seat. The only person I've ever experienced that with, or anything similar, was Jim Rowan. And both of them had such a smooth and easy way of speaking, but it captivated everybody. And I just think it was a true gift, and obviously one that he's cultivated over a long time. And his generosity with his time was fantastic. So thank you very much for his family to share with us. And, you know, it's been a privilege to have him as part of us as well.
Thank you, Linda. I think I've covered everyone. I do want to give, oh, Larry, you did a table topic, Larry, but I'm willing to have you come back up. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I just wanted to say, let's all give Bob a group hug. Everybody hug. Bob, Bob, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Well said and well requested. I'd like to ask if anyone, I know most of you have spoken, but if anyone in Bob's family would like to give us some closing comments before I wrap the meeting.
I'll go. My mom's a little under the weather right now. So, but what you should know is that this to her and to all of us means the world, that you guys care about him the way we do. So thank you for the time today and the dedication that you gave him. But know that his love language was time, and that's why it meant so much to him.
His love language was time. And what we've done together as a community and as family is we've spent 40 days of time reflecting on and remembering Bob's legacy and culminating that today in a short tribute and celebration of our very own member and family member, Bob Blakely, who lives on through each and every one of you. And with, sorry, Arlene's trying to get my attention here. What did I miss, Arlene?
Moira is you missed Fabiola trying to get your attention.
Oh, sorry.
No, because when you asked if everybody was talking, I see that Moira is still on, Moira O'Brien.
Sorry, I did talk with Moira earlier. Moira, would you like to share a few words?
Thanks, Samir. I didn't know Bob. I knew of him, obviously, as I think most Toastmasters do. I would certainly like to give my tribute to him as being the one who introduced women into Toastmasters. I think that was a major event.
Mm.
And I'd just like to say that I've enjoyed the meeting. I would love to come back and see you again and maybe even join you. And I look forward to seeing you in a future meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Moira. We would love to see you again and to have you become a part of our family. You're welcome anytime to come and visit Firebirds Collective or to join if that's what you'd like to do. And I think that's an even more fitting place to end our meeting today, because it is the people that we reach in Toastmasters in which we're able to have an impact. And I know that was something that was important to Bob. And I've seen with many Toastmasters that that's the legacy, the people that we impact. The guests who come here to Firebirds Collective, what they see as a global community, and the feedback that we get is that we could make a difference collectively as Toastmasters, as a global community, as an example of how we can stand together. With that, I'd like to close this tribute and our 133rd meeting of Firebirds Collective. And I declare this meeting closed. Please, if we could stop the recording, and if anybody wants to stay around, I think we can keep the meeting going for one of those infamous after parties in which so much was revealed.